Welcome to Bird's Eye View Media. It's been a while since we filmed, but it makes no difference to you because we upload every week. Game of Thrones is about to wrap up yet another season, and some big shit has happened. Now, just to be clear, we are not talking about the political goings-on of the show. We're going to stick in our comfort area because one of our most popular videos was titled How to Defeat Daenerys Targaryen, so we want to follow up with the couple of main battles that have taken place the last two episodes. So realistically what we are doing is we're talking about Daenerys showing up to fight Jaime Lannister's army, and then Euron Greyjoy bringing his navy into Casterly Rock. So those are the main events of this war so far. We're excluding the White Walker shit because it's a bunch of magic, and I don't know how much tactics actually matter.
Now, I'm going to say going into that, I have some issues with the battle, as I've told you off camera, that Dany attacks the Lannister army, because there's a little bit of bullshit. Now, albeit, in all seriousness, she's still probably going to win that battle, because, I mean, dragons...
She has air superiority, which in that era wasn't a thing, but it is a thing in today's world, so that is
And no
important.
matter what world you're in, if it's a thing or not, if you have it, you win.
Generally. So let's just recap, and obviously there's going to be a shitload of spoilers in this video. So...
Hopefully you're caught up.
Let's just start with the big battle, Jaime Lannister. So the first important thing to know is it was a surprise attack with Daenerys bringing the dragons. So it was very clear that the Lannister army was not expecting that. So it was not necessarily an evenly matched battle right from the beginning.
Yeah, but like I said, she's going to win. She has the dragon. All she has to do is put her foot to the pedal to the metal, and it's done with that.
Yeah.
But in this situation, she kills maybe 15 dudes with one burst of flame, and the Dothraki just start cutting through the Lannisters. Now, it's not going to happen in a real battle because you're talking about a light cavalry, undisciplined horde that is not like the Huns where it was archery based.
Well, they did show up with some archers,
Yes,
which is
it's
one of the
not
first
their
times.
tactic.
Right. It was interesting, though, because that's one of the first times we've seen a Dothraki actually start to use archery on horseback.
Yes, and obviously if they're going to fight exclusively from horseback, you know that's going to come into the mix somewhere. But they are mostly a light cavalry, unarmored, weird, awkward, sword-based combat. And that sword, first off, that shape is not meant for cavalry warfare.
Well, it's a slice. It's made to slice. It's made to just on-the-run slice.
Yeah, but that's not going to work against armor.
In my opinion, here's what happened. So essentially, most of that army was not up to the quality as the Knights of the Vale, for example, would be. They weren't full plate-mailed soldiers. There were some of them, but the bulk of the army was not full plate mail.
Well, no, because this army that the Lannisters this was the remnants of their father Tywin's army. This was the core of the Lannister force that has been battle-hardened, professionally trained. These guys are not militia and peasants that have been pulled into conscription. So
there's two issues, though, that I think the Lannister army could have used to actually be victorious in that battle. And both of them come down to expecting the element of the dragons. So really what's going on is they know that there's a huge cavalry force that they have to fight. Okay? So we didn't see anything beyond a spear, which I found very interesting and very kind of stupid of an army to do. You know that you're dealing with one of the most biggest horde militaries on the planet in the Dothraki. So you need to have pikes. You need long spear walls that prevent the horses from getting close. And all we saw in the battle was a standard 6 to 8 foot spear.
But here's the thing, is they were operating, this is why I got mad, because they were operating in what the Vikings pioneered as the shield wall technique, which is more than just a phalanx of making a wall and holding that wall. It's a cohesive front line. The back line uses a mix of archery and spears to also assist forward. They've even been known that once the enemy crashes against their wall, they'd propel their own soldiers over the top to fight from the rear where they're weak and exposed. It's a very complicated tactic, and that works great
Yeah,
against light cavalry.
But I mean,
that was the whole point.
Right, and I
that
get,
medieval Europe
and I
had.
definitely see that. But you can go earlier than that and simplify it. And if you look at Alexander the Great, Sarissa, the Sarissa, that is an even longer version of a pike. And it's so simple. All you did was you had a couple layers of extremely long spears. So the point is, they didn't do either of these things.
Well, my point, though, is the shield wall was the most complex form of warfare of that time.
Yeah.
And it was so effective against infantry, light cavalry, everything.
Yeah.
That was the defining thing that caused heavy cavalry to have to be made.
Oh, absolutely. And the Dothraki are by no means heavy cavalry.
Oh, yeah. They're barely light.
They
don't have any armor.
The only heavy cavalry that we've technically seen in an army force would be the Knights of the Vale so far.
And a standard spear will cut through.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
a standard 8-foot spear still would, in reality, more likely than not, stop a pretty heavy amount. And something we pointed out in How to Defeat Daenerys Targaryen is that in the lore of Game of Thrones, the Unsullied, one of the myths of the one of the legends of the Unsullied is that they were able to hold off hordes and hordes of Dothraki themselves. And Unsullied are probably even less armored than the Lannister army we just saw, and they use nothing but a standard 6 to 8 foot spear. So if the Unsullied can do it with the same pretty much similar equipment, then the Lannister army should obviously have been able to do it.
And that's a flaw that, where you're saying the Lannisters possibly could have won that, and I can see your point, because honestly, if they hold that shield wall like they should have, that stops the chaos from erupting.
Yeah, and that's what does you in.
And that allows them to utilize their
archers?
No.
Their ballista?
Yes.
Okay. Well, here's the important thing that we have not yet mentioned, and here's the reason why I can still say it makes sense that the Lannister army was overrun. The dragons, we do see the Dothraki very briefly clash with the army. They do create some chaos because the Dothraki, they get up on the horseback and they jump over the lines. In reality, you might disrupt the line relatively briefly doing that. I don't see that as being able to beat the line. But the nature of the line is even some of the best armies in history, when the line is broken, a big part of that is reforming the line. So even if the Dothraki did break the line on the initial impact, there's no reason to say that the line couldn't have been reformed and held.
Oh,
however,
sure. Especially where the shield wall is designed
exactly to rubber band, right? And the big element is the dragon. So the dragon coming in and breathing fire right on the front line, that is the main reason that the equipment and tactical ability was tipped so heavy into Daenerys' favor, and it didn't mean much for the Lannisters, because not only did the dragon burn through the main line and allow the Dothraki to do what they do best, and that's run people down and rout enemy troops, but it also created something that 99% of those people had never seen in their life. A giant mythological war creature burning your friends alive. So just the presence of that dragon was the reason that they did not hold the line. And we want to be very clear about that, because if the dragon wasn't at that battle, I honestly think Daenerys loses that battle.
It would be a slaughter.
You're
talking about a battle-hardened professional army. I mean, the Huns succeeded and the Mongols succeeded in a time where Western militaries, the pinnacle was the Legion, which was an outdated form of combat.
But I mean, you got to give credit too to the fact that the Huns and the Mongols both used a tactic we have yet to see the Dothraki use, which is the moving group archer on horseback. And that is when they would go in, fire volleys, and then go out before they could even attack that. And they would essentially harass an enemy army into a point where they could then breach. And the rest of the cavalry was essentially just there to hold. So That's something the Dothraki have never done in the show, and there's no history of them doing that type. I mean, they have horse archery, but they're not using it as expertly as the Huns or the Mongols did.
The fact is that the Dothraki horde specifically, and even the Unsullied in Westeros, maybe not in Essos, where they come from, they are both outdated military styles.
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
The Unsullied is basically a combination of the Legion and the Phalanx.
And without going too much into repeating our past video, because we did mention this and we talked about the Unsullied and the Dothraki and how they compare to the Westeros armies, the big point we want to make is the show does seem as though it's painting with the Dothraki general saying, this is how your people fight, this is pathetic. But the only reason that there was really any notable success was the fact that the dragon was there. So very briefly, to wrap this video up, we did get to see the Scorpion in action. We saw Bronn use the Scorpion, fire a bolt right into Drogon's wing. One bolt that connected completely dropped and grounded Drogon. So to me, what that tells me is the new strategy is to create a small array of Scorpions and fire volleys. So in the next battle, you put 10 ballista, 10 Scorpion on castle walls or in the back of your troops, and you fire them at once in a volley, that kills a dragon no problem.
Which is only further building on what history's taught us to begin with. Because, I mean, even when ballistas were the pinnacle of long-range, heavy assault weaponry, they always operated in units of
they were never alone. So the fact that they had one Scorpion was very bizarre and probably did more damage because now Daenerys is aware that they have an artillery weapon made to hit the dragon. So you've lost that element of surprise. So that's our tactical update. Let us know if we missed anything.
If you go on forever.
And if you didn't see how to defeat Daenerys Targaryen, I think a lot of our points still hold very true. And we did talk about the ballista before it was ever even mentioned in the show. Just saying. So check that video out. And yeah, subscribe.
War nerds!